As of May 2024, I have been living in Germany for 10 years. And sometimes it feels, as an expat or now immigrant, foreigner here in Germany, that I'm not allowed to talk about my struggles because I put myself in this position. I chose to move halfway across the world for love and live in Germany as a Canadian. As a gift to myself and a celebration of me reaching 10 years in Germany, I finally decided to open up about what it's been like for me living the past 10 years in Germany and how I'm feeling now. Trigger warning, there are some tears. And a huge thanks to my expat coach Lucina, who helped guide me through this confession, or what felt like a confession to you guys. I feel really good. And I hope that you're inspired by my chats and by me opening up about my feelings so that you can do the same for your journey, whether you're a German or a foreigner like me.
I am Lucy, and I'll be your expat coach today. That's what I do for a living, and I have been in coaching and in personal development since I can remember. I started in teaching, and then I moved to lecturing, actually at the university in Braunschweig, so not so far away from Düsseldorf. Then I moved to academia, and I was doing training and coaching for recruiters. It was actually then that I did a coaching qualification, and I realized that I wanted to move into coaching full time because I wanted to work exclusively with expats. I have been an expat myself for 20 odd years. Most of the people I used to work with were expats, so I thought, why not really work with expats and see how I can support them on their journey, how I can use not only my own life experience, but also my education and my passion. I reached out to you, I think already 4 years ago, just at the beginning of Lucy Bowen Coaching. Why? Because you're an expat living in Germany. When I reached out to you again last week, I thought, let me see how Jenna is doing.
This is the perfect time for this call right now because I think it was like the 14th of May, so we're only a few weeks away from my 10-year anniversary.
I work with long-term expats, so people who have lived abroad for a long time. And what do I do with people like you, Jenna? I have conversations, I have chats, I ask a lot of questions, and some would say, why? You know, they've been in the country that they chose for quite some time, so things should be settled, they should be thriving, flourishing, and most of the time they do. But expat life, I think, always is faced with different challenges. You know, when you move, you have a different set of struggles, issues, if you like. It never ends. As exciting as it is, as thrilling as it is to live abroad, there are always things that, you know, crop up. And as an expat, we need to be able to deal with them in the best possible way. So I thought that today we could have a conversation to see how you feel, you know, what's working very well for you in Düsseldorf, Germany, and what you would maybe like to improve. You know, what are the thoughts you're going through, how it is to be a long-term expat. Do you feel settled? Do you feel German now? Are you still Canadian? What's your identity? Do you belong? Do you regret? Do you compare? Do you feel like, you know, this was the best decision you could have made to move to Germany? Jenna's success in Germany.
Yes, it's been 10 years, and yes, of course, maybe I feel settled in a way, but there's also so many other aspects of my life where I think it would be nice just to go home and see my family. You know, I still have like certain struggles that maybe I had at the beginning or I didn't have at the beginning. I just posted an Instagram reel about this actually, and it was the most basic reel, but it was about things that I'm still struggling with as an immigrant here in Germany, but I still struggle with things, and I published that. And it's reached almost 6 million views now. And like for my account, that's absolutely insane. And then I realized, okay, you know, people do realize that this struggle is real even 10 years later. And I thought this would be honestly the best opportunity for me to reflect on the last 10 years with you, but also to be able to open up to our audience and share my stories and what I've lived through, and maybe what they might be able to expect a little bit of moving forward. Maybe not, but that's okay too. I think it's just nice being able to open up and share my stories with everybody.
I think it's a great idea. And also, you know, that the reaction you received on Instagram just shows how hot this topic is, but also I think how we take it for granted. You know, I just recently looked at this infographics that there are nearly 300 million expats worldwide. Their problems and challenges and aspirations and dreams, I would say, are different to people who lived in their home country, who have never left. So I think the reaction just shows, you know, how much people identify, how it resonates with them.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that we are talking about it today. Let's go back to Jenna, the first-time expat, you know, who in May 2014 decided to move to Germany. So the first-time expat who has maybe a little bit of uncertainty, maybe a little bit of anxiety, but I think the excitement prevails. What were the challenges, the struggles, or things that were going on in your head when you were first moving abroad?
Initially, it was definitely the relationship factor, and I think many others might be able to relate to this too, because for me, I was Miss Independent. And in many podcasts before and videos before, I've explained that I never wanted to give up my life for somebody else. My mom raised me to be Miss Independent and do exactly what I dreamt of doing. And I always had this envision that I was going to work in business and marketing and live in like a penthouse suite in Toronto with a little puppy dog and no kids and no husband. And I had some entirely different dream laid out for me. But now when I think of that dream, I'm like, that's not what I want at all. Like, I'm so happy, I'm living this like family life with 2 kids and a husband in Germany, where I never in a million years thought I would be. I think my initial reaction was like, I'm giving up, I didn't want to give up, but at the same time, like, my heartstrings were just pulling me here, because I felt like, this one's the one, and it was a really hard deciding factor. But the first year of being here, I have to say, like, it was actually pretty easy. I think it depends on what you're thinking when you first get there. And for me, I don't think I realized I was gonna live my entire life here. I think it's one thing when you come being like, oh my God, I have to change everything. Like, I'm moving here. Whereas I was like, let's give it a year and see if our relationship works. Who knows? I'm not sure. So the first year was really just like this honeymoon phase with Germany, and it was amazing. It was really like the second year where I started to struggle.
So you actually touched upon the reason why you moved. So in your case, it was your relationship, and it is for many expats, some of them do move for love. And then I think the excitement, and the relationship is what they focus on. But many expats, they move for work, they move to better the quality of their lives. Some of them do move for adventure. And you said that you wanted to be this independent Jenna, and moving abroad does mean that you leave like a part of you in your home country, and it does entail going out of your comfort zone and seeing, okay, what's out there? Who can I be now? How can I now reinvent myself? Because it's a new country and it's kind of a new me. So tell me that the second year, when it kind of started to sink in, I might just as well stay here for a bit longer. What would have helped you to know back then to ease those struggles that you mentioned?
I didn't prepare myself mentally at all. I think, to be honest, I didn't really think I was going to be staying in Germany. I had no interest in learning the German language. I thought like my husband or boyfriend at the time was definitely going to move back to Canada. I didn't think that I was going to fall in love with Germany so much that I would want to stay here and live the rest of my life here and make my entire job about helping others move to Germany, And I don't know, I think a lot of that was actually, yes, because I struggled moving here, but also building it up as a business was my way of gaining my independence back, selfishly, because I am very hardworking and I am very independent, but I wasn't even mooching off my husband. I can't even say that. I wasn't taking his money, he wasn't paying for anything, but I still felt like I needed him because he was the German, so I could always, relay back to him if I needed support. And even 10 years down the road, I know I'm fast forwarding, but that's something I still struggle with, is like proving myself here in Germany, I work full time, I have 2 children, I'm making more money than I ever thought I would, but for some reason I still feel like I have to prove myself as a human, as a woman, as a self-employed person, and that's still one of my biggest struggles.
That's usually what long-term expats come to me with, so they speak the language, they have a job, they have, a support network, friends. But then, when they've been abroad for a couple of years, it's different for everybody. This is when they start asking, okay, so do I really belong here? Am I one of them? You have a German husband, you speak German very, very well. You live there with your children, but you still say that you have to prove yourself as a woman, as a businesswoman, as a partner. So when people ask you where you're from, what is your identity now? Where do you belong? Where is your home?
When people ask me where I'm from, I always say Canada. I will forever be very proud to be Canadian. This was like one of my biggest struggles, was, do I give up my Canadian passport for a German one? And thankfully now we have the opportunity to soon become dual citizens. However, I constantly identify, and I think I always will identify as a Canadian, but when I'm talking about like where I want to be, like where makes me the most happy. Like we just spent a long weekend in the Netherlands, and all I can think about is this home that we've built for ourselves. And maybe it's because we bought the house and it was super old and required major renovation, and we've just spent the last 5 years building it up exactly the way we want, or because that's where our bedrooms are and this is where my kids are being raised. But it's hard. Like I identify as Canadian, but Germany feels more like my home than when I go back to Canada, which may obviously be so because I don't have a home there and have new houses, so I don't even have a childhood home to go back to. So that's kind of, I think, why I've built these such strong roots with the current house that we live in.
And I think it's absolutely acceptable and normal to have two homes, you know, to have a sentiment for Canada, because this is where you spent, you know, a big chunk of your life, this is where you're born, but then have a home away from home or another home, you know, where you have your children, where you settled and started a family. How do you then describe the challenges you're facing now? So obviously you've been, you know, abroad for 10 years, and you said at the beginning you wish you had prepared mentally. So how do the challenges that you're facing currently vary from those encountered at the beginning of your expat journey?
It's become a lot more emotionally draining nowadays, and I don't know if that's because I've reached 10 years and reality is kicking in where I realize, oh my God, sometimes I worry, and this might be crazy, but now that I know this is like a permanent thing, like this is where I'm raising my kids, this is where my husband is gonna want to retire and then pass away, you know, because this is Germany, this is his home. But I can't even imagine being old, like in a retirement home in Germany, and that terrifies me. The thought of that terrifies me because yes, I speak German. It's still more work, obviously, than speaking English for me, and I think like, you know, when I get old, most of my family has Alzheimer's or dementia, like I'm probably gonna forget most of my German. Like it goes that far in my thought process right now, which is kind of crazy, but also I've just had 2 children in Germany, and it's so much more settled. This is my home. This is probably where we're gonna live forever. It's emotionally exhausting and terrifying to know that we're so far from my family. We're close with my husband's family, but my family's just like, I don't know, you'll be together on the weekend and you'll wake up in your pajamas together and like not brush your hair or brush your teeth, and like you snuggle on the couch, which some people might think is super creepy, but that's who we are. That's like how we grew up. My mom was, like I mentioned, divorced with my dad, so we spent most of my time with my mom with 3 kids, you know, and so we're always just like cuddled in a bed together on the sofa watching movies, and that's kind of what I dreamt of my kids having with their cousins, like with my nieces and nephews, and now I have 4 of them back in Canada, and it's honestly a daily thought of mine that like breaks my heart that we're so far away. And sometimes I think like, should we move back to Canada for a year or 2, like just to give them that experience, to make them feel a little bit more Canadian? Because the more I stay in Germany, the more I feel like, am I even allowed to call myself Canadian? Like I'm reaching it like a decade here, you know, and it's identity crisis now, not only for me, but for my children. Like somebody asked my son the other day, like, oh, are you German or are you Canadian? And he was like, I was born in Germany. And then I was like so sad because I just identify him as Canadian as well, but he's right, he was born here, like he's pretty much German.
You've said so much there. Oh my goodness, you've said so much. You know, because it's the relationship, but then it's your marriage, and then it's your children. I can see that, you know, that you have tears in your eyes, and it's like you said, it's emotionally draining, it's difficult, it's terrifying. I moved back to Poland 3 years ago just for the topics that you've addressed, you know, being away from home for 20 odd years and wanting to have my children and my husband experience Poland, because coming, you know, and visiting Poland was different to actually living here. But, you know, once an expat, always an expat. So as you said, you are considering maybe moving back to Canada, and who knows? You know, maybe you'll decide to do it and then stay there. You never know. You said the security, right? Being in your home country, especially when growing older, especially when having your children, it gives you this solid ground, you know, underneath your feet. This is what expats usually seek, the direction, you know, like they say, the purpose, you know, even if it sounds really esoteric, or the essence, you know. So am I staying here? Is this my home? What about the identity of my children? You said this is a thought you have every day. We're so far away from Canada. What is the best remedy to calm this thought down, to accept it? What is your remedy to deal with it in the best possible way?
For me, I think most of the anxiety stems from the fact that when you do have children, you become a lot more grounded, because you know, okay, for them, you know, it's so important that they gain routine. Like my son right now, I don't think he struggles being bilingual, but he needs, you know, some additional support with the grammar and the German language and everything, which I'm not worried about because he's going to be studying here in Germany. But then I think, okay, well, what if we go to Canada for a couple of years? Like, will that make it worse for him coming back, because everybody talks about now, you know, the German school system, which I don't share that much information on my YouTube channel because I don't know that much about it yet, but I know I'm going to go through it. And a lot of them say, well, you can't pull them out in the 4th grade because that's when they have to make the choice between Gymnasium, Realschule. Like, there's so much more to learn, and I just don't want to be holding my children back, you know, like based on my emotions. But for me, the only thing that helps me moving forward and mentally is either to have a trip planned, which right now is a little bit tricky because, I mean, my one child is 1.5 years old and flying with her is an absolute nightmare. This year I can't even see the worth going back to Canada, which sounds so bad, but it's mentally draining being on a flight with this girl. And I know that like hopefully next year we'll make it happen, but even financially, like sometimes I worry flight prices are getting more expensive. Are we going to be able to make it home every single year to Canada? Like, that's a huge commitment to make, and I'm very thankful that my family often comes to visit me, but how long will that be? How long will it be until my parents get too old, you know? And yeah, so just knowing that I could go back definitely helps.
That you have this option, you know, because some people do not have this option to going back. So having possibilities to go back, and of course now with your baby, maybe the options are limited, but still you have the possibility. When I speak to friends and they learn that, you know, my child is trilingual, because you mentioned your son being bilingual, they say, oh, how lucky, you know, how fantastic. And yes, it is an amazing asset for them, right? But it does bring their own challenges. And then the educational systems of the differences. You could, for instance, maybe consider living in Canada for a few years so that both of your children could attend the school in Canada. Yes, you know, they might not be very competent or extremely fluent in both languages, but the fact that they speak 2 languages, that they are bilingual, is a gift, right? That they don't need to waste. So I can see that it is an emotionally difficult topic. It is still, like you said, exciting for you to be able to have built a house, a home, like you said, according to your dreams and aspirations, to be able to, you know, hop on a weekend trip to the Netherlands, which is just next door. We've talked about challenges a lot. You know, our challenges are just different to people who have lived in one country for all their lives. It's not like life is not challenging. It is, but it's about changing those challenges into opportunities. So in your case, what you have highlighted is, oh, Lucy, they are so far away. My parents, I wish we could live in Canada. You know, I wish we were closer. Those wishes can come true, right? There is always a way. If we were to now speak about the opportunities, about those hidden gems of living abroad, things that maybe people don't know. Yes, you speak German. Yes, you live abroad. Yes, you travel Europe. But what else is there for you that you wouldn't have experienced otherwise had you stayed in Canada?
For me, it's definitely just being more cultured, and not only for me but for my children. And I don't mean this to come off the wrong way, but in Canada I felt like I was in a bubble. And that's why I can't ever imagine really raising my children there entirely, because of course there's areas of Canada that are really nice, like where my sister lives. She lives in the Yukon, where they learn all about their culture and their history there, and it's incredible, and the culture is very lush, but the weather is too cold for me. But here we're surrounded by so much opportunity. And yes, of course you said other than the travel, but it's also the travel. Like, I see this excitement in my son's eyes all the time. Like, we're thinking, okay, maybe we should go to Scotland. But then I thought, oh, then he's gonna miss his big summer party at the end of his Kita year. And he was like, it's okay, mommy, I'd rather go to Scotland. And when he goes, he just, how he embraces like the culture and the language and the food. And it just makes me so proud to think, wow, like he's gonna be so much more culturally educated than I ever was in Canada. And I think this opportunity for me and for my children is just huge. And I'm so thankful for it all the time.
The more cultures you experience, the richer you become, right? Your horizon expands. It's not only the language, it's just the experiences, you know, the way people do things. Your business, you mentioned it before, that you still think you have to prove yourself. But when I asked you the other day, you said, Lucy, I am thriving. And I was really curious to hear that, because many expats, they are not really struggling, you know, they are, as I said, ambitious, brave individuals. They go out there, they move abroad, pick up the language, find a job in a culture setting that's sometimes completely different, right? I had clients who moved from, I don't know, Dubai to Denmark, from Canada to Germany, from Algeria to Germany. I'm thinking about my clients and some of the cultural clashes
Yeah.
And they still manage, they still get by. But sometimes they come to me and say, Lucy, I don't want to get by and survive. I want to thrive. I really want to go out of my comfort zone and live life to the fullest and not feel kind of suppressed. Really want to reach my full potential, do what I was meant to do. How do you manage to flourish? How do you manage to really live your life to the fullest? Regardless of, the cultural differences, regardless of the fact that German is your second language, what is your secret weapon?
It's hard for me because like you said, I am thriving. I couldn't even imagine in a million years that I would be where I am today, doing what I'm doing and helping so many people. And I'm so grateful for that and so thankful. And the community that I have online is so powerful, but sometimes it's difficult because it is online, and last year my accounts got hacked and I kind of felt like my whole life was taken away from me. Like I almost lost my entire business. I lost 75% of my income that year. Like that's a huge chunk of money, and I was lucky that I was on maternity leave. Otherwise I would have no money coming in at all. It's so amazing to have these feelings online, but then offline, what I struggle with is not having that support. You watch other people online, they've reached these certain goals that they have for themselves, whether it's gaining 100,000 followers. Nobody here in Germany celebrates me, like I'm never celebrated. I'm just that wife, you know what I mean? I'm just the wife of a German man. It's such a sad thing, but sometimes I do have to remind myself, look where you are and look how many people you've helped, and it is incredible. But my passion for doing what I do is what keeps me moving forward, and that's what, I'm proud of it. And I know it's sometimes crazy, but this is what really pushes me onwards.
So I ask you, how do you thrive? And you say, it's because of my passion and because of what I'm good at. It's because of my strengths. This is amazing to hear from a long-term expat who recognizes that if you don't have a passion, it will be difficult for you to have that direction, to have something, that keeps you going, even though your accounts, get hacked. And for you who has an online business, this is so important. And still, you are resilient enough to just pick yourself up and keep going. To all those expats, watching us now, this is what you need to find at the very beginning of your journey as an expat. Even if you're not an expat, finding that one thing, that two things that you really are passionate about, that, think about moving abroad. Answer the question, why are you moving? What will you be doing there, right? Why that job? Because moving abroad will not solve all your issues, will not make you happy or thriving. You need to know why you're moving in the first place, have a plan for yourself. And then it's easier, when the challenges, when the cultural clash hits, it's easier to deal with them because you know your value, you know your strengths, you're organized, or you're disciplined, or you're focused, or you're communicative. There has not been a person I've worked with who didn't ask me, Lucy, what am I here for? Like, tell me, I've been in Germany or in whatever country. I think I've worked with expats from 50 countries. I stopped counting at 50, and all of them, without any exception, ask me, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why? What is this for? What am I chasing? What do I want? What do I want? This is the question. So I think for anyone, regardless of where they come from or where they want to live, as banal as it might sound, what do you really want? And take time to get to know yourself, to have the self-knowledge. So I'm not surprised that this is kind of the conclusion you are sharing with us today, that having that passion, is what keeps you going, right? Because you might be seen through the spouses, or what's important is the fact that they live, in a very nice, exotic, attractive location. But life is still
life.
the same. Life is still life. So I think what keeps us going is having meaning, having purpose, having something that we wake up for in the morning. And that doesn't have to be only, the family, the friends, the husband, the children. It has to be something that gives us value, makes us feel, like you said, recognized. I think I would like to ask you also about the cultural differences, because this is a big topic in my coaching calls where expats struggle to fit in, they feel overwhelmed. And sometimes the cultures are even similar. So I have people living in the US who moved there from the UK. On the surface, similar cultures, they speak the same language, and still they encounter a lot of differences. Canada and Germany. Are your cultures, yours and your husband's culture, similar? How was it for you?
At the beginning, it was definitely a lot of clashing, of course. I think that's normal for everybody. You've got all of those basic stereotypical culture shocks, culture clashes, and it's almost fun to get through those. And then you get through them and you're like, okay, like I've done it, like great, whatever. But then when another theme or topic starts to happen, like buying a house or renovating that house, but for us, the biggest change has been having children. It's not just about how I was raised and how he was raised, it's also a lot to do with the culture behind it and what's okay and what's the norm and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And I find us daily now bonking heads with in these themes and not really being able to agree on what's okay and what's not okay. I mean, slowly, because we are a family and we do work together, we're able to kind of build this up, but it's amazing to see how different two people can be culturally speaking that you had no idea about, even though you've been married for years and years and years, you know?
Learning by doing is probably the best way to go. I actually studied intercultural communication. And this, when I work with expats, helped me a lot because yes, there are stereotypes, things that we know about cultures, things that we maybe read up on the internet when researching and preparing to move abroad. But there are some things like values, like you mentioned, children's upbringing, things that are kind of stable in many cultures that I think make sense and is helpful to familiarize oneself with.
Yeah.
Maybe having a chat with your partner about those things so that you are aware, so that you then take it, with a pinch of salt, and you know that your partner is different and you understand why, he has different ideas about children's upbringing, raising your kids.
Sometimes you don't realize how much even just talking to somebody helps, I remember as a kid, I went to therapy on my own for some difficulty that my brother was going through for a few years that took a huge toll on myself and my family, and they requested that I also take therapy to support myself. And I wasn't crying. Like, I would never cry and I'd never open up. And then I remember the first meeting, like, just being so stubborn. And by the end of the meeting, she had somehow like cracked the shell, and that's exactly what it felt like. And I just started bawling my eyes out, like uncontrollably, couldn't stop. And it felt relieving, but also terrifying because I was opening myself up to a stranger. But it's so nice. I always say, I think like everybody in the world really needs somebody to talk to,
Yeah, I could feel that some of the topics were difficult, hard, and emotional for you. But now you're smiling. So sometimes just, like you said, talking them through is all you need. And many people I talk to, they say, Lucy, I haven't shared this with anyone before. I actually recorded a video about it called Why Expats Suffer in Silence. Expats, as we mentioned before, they're those ambitious, life-loving people, and then they don't even want to admit that things are not going as they thought they would go. They are surprised by the challenges, and of course they have very high expectations of themselves, of the new country, so they don't want to come out and say, listen, I'm actually struggling. I appeal to everyone not to suffer in silence and to talk things through, because our challenges are different. If we were to kind of look into the future, because coaching is about the past, of course, but coaching is very dynamic and it's about the now and the future. So we draw knowledge, conclusions from the past, but we want to see how we can improve today, how we can enjoy today, how we can be in the present moment. If I were to give you a call, I don't know, May 15th, 2025. So you celebrating, 11 years in Germany. What would you like to tell me? How are things going? How are you feeling? What are you doing? Where are you?
I would like to be exactly where I am right now. I'm so happy, and I think that's the best example to show people. It's like, I have the job that I want. My family is perfect. My relationships here are amazing. I still have so many close ties with my family and my friends back home, and I'm so thankful for it. And I haven't had to deal with grief of losing a loved one, even though that's what I'm terrified of every day. I feel like I can't ask for anything more. And I think that exactly what you just said about, expats struggle in silence, I think that's exactly how I feel, really, is because you don't talk about these things, and I don't talk about them because I think that people will judge me. Because I made my choice. I made my decision to move to Germany. That was my problem. And a lot of people say, oh, first world problems, you're going through missing your parents. Shitty luck, you were the one who decided to move to Germany in the first place, It's not that easy. My direction in life took its own path, and I'm so thankful for that, and I don't want anything else. I don't want to move back to Canada, and yes, I want my family to be closer, but it's still something that I struggle with every day. And to be honest, in a year from now, if I could have the perfect life, I would somehow convince somebody in my family to move to Germany. But as many people on my YouTube channel know, I've been trying to convince my mom for years and years and years, and it's not that easy. You can't change somebody else's life because you made your life decision. So I think I would just really be happy with coming to terms with the fact that I've made this decision for myself, and that missing them is going to be normal, but like maybe somehow come up with a solution that's going to make me feel better.
Like you said, this is one of the struggles, but the first answer was, I wouldn't change anything. I'm super happy. I'm stoked, like I think you Canadians say, because my husband is Canadian. He used this word quite often. When I asked you if you are considering moving back, of course, this thought is there.
Yeah.
But you have just said that when you moved to Düsseldorf, started off 10 years ago, you said the one thing I maybe would have done differently is to prepare myself emotionally, right? So we always focus, not always, but most frequently on the logistics and the formalities, thinking that the rest will kind of happen. Maybe to focus your attention on how to prepare yourself emotionally, mentally, how to maybe convince your mom, but if she is happy where she is and doesn't want to be forced, out of the country, how to deal with it, how to embrace it, how to find joy in the fact that you can see her still, not as often as you would have liked to. I think this is one of the reasons why I am now in Poland after living abroad for 20 years, just to spend more time with my mom. How do we wrap this up? So we started off with you moving mid-May 2014 to Germany, going over the honeymoon period, being head over heels in love with both Germany and your husband, then encountering some challenges, cultural clashes, learning the language, and deciding to stay, starting your business, helping others, finding your purpose actually out of your decision.
Yeah.
You just turned a challenge into opportunity, an amazing example. And now here we are, 10 years in, regardless issues you're still grappling with. And a year from now, you will still be smiling. You will have probably accepted that your mom will be visiting you from time to time, that you'll be visiting you. Maybe you'll already have come up with an idea to spend some more time in Canada so that your children can experience Canada, live there for a little while.
Yeah.
I was thinking that maybe we can give a few pieces of advice to anyone who is watching us, maybe for first-time expats who have just moved abroad. What would you say to your younger self?
There's something that somebody told me once. It was actually my sewing teacher. And she said there's 3 things that you need to focus on in order to be happy in life. And I wish that somebody had told me that back then. But even though when she told me it, I guess maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it stuck with me forever. And it's something that I remind myself of every time I'm feeling like down. And she said, you need 3 things in life. You need something to love, like somebody or something to love, whether it's a pet or a human being, something to do, like a passion. So not just working every day, but like something you're passionate about that keeps you busy, because finding your passion in a new country is hard, but it's so important, and it should be one of your main focuses, I think, when you first get here, is finding where you belong and what you're passionate about in this new country. And the 3rd one for me, which is actually the most important because I struggle a lot with the fact that I'm separated from my family, is having something to look forward to. And if I don't have something to look forward to in life, I find myself kind of spiraling downwards into this tunnel of like just feeling depressed and just wanting to stay home and not leave the house and just watch movies and forget about the fact that even though I have this perfect life here and I'm so thankful, that sometimes I'm sad. So always having something to look forward to, which for me is a trip planned to Canada or a trip that my family and friends are planning to Germany.
Or maybe your children going to a Canadian school for a year or 2, who knows, So what you're looking forward to is bringing the connection, between the 2 countries, between the 2 cultures, between the 2 families. What would I have said to my younger self? I would advise myself not to compare, because I have lived in 6 countries. So of course, whether I wanted it or not, I would find myself comparing, what was it like back there? What is it like here? And what will it be like in the next, country? So maybe to just appreciate what you have, especially for the repeated expats, to really appreciate, to notice what you have, because it's not going to be there forever. It's not going to last. And even if you decide to stay in the country, your life changes. So it might not be available to you. So as banal as it sounds, I know we've all heard it before, just appreciate what you have. So go travel the country, learn the language, make friends, appreciate, the business you're running, the job you have, the people who surround you, because they might move, live your life to the fullest. It's a little bit of a generic piece of advice, but having lived in 6 countries for 20 something years, now when I look back, I think I have tried at least to learn a little bit from each country, to take a little bit of their wisdoms. Because each country taught me a lesson, and I'm trying to, instead of saying, oh, I didn't really appreciate that about Germany, or that was so, unreasonable in France. I try really to think of the things I loved and that now are making my life easier. And then for those long-term expats like you, like me, people who have lived abroad for quite some time, whether it's one country, what would we tell them? What would be, because they are so hungry for advice. The reaction you had on Instagram, people are so hungry to get some advice or perspective, from us who've experienced it firsthand.
For me, I would definitely say, like I mentioned, I feel like I don't have the right to complain because I made this decision on my own, but I think the more people that can open up and talk about it, I think the better it gets. And I think just being open about it and talking about it is the only way that we can really move forward in the right direction and getting that support that we need. Just talking to you, even just for this short time, shows me how helpful it is for me, like how much it opens me to realize, okay, there are ways that I can work on this, and I don't always have to feel this way, you know?
And it's okay, you know, to cry and smile at the same time. Just acknowledge that it is hard, right? That those decisions are not easy. What I think didn't know is that expat life presents itself with a lot of options, many more than if I had stayed in Poland when I was 19. I have so many possibilities, so many options, so much freedom. And this has not always worked to my advantage, because then you are in this analysis paralysis. Do I stay? Do I go? Do I move on? Do I go back? So I think expats, they take more decisions. And I think if you think about your decisions, then accept them. So don't decide to move because your neighbor has, because it's trendy, because, you know, everybody at uni does. Just know why you're moving and accept that it's going to be messy. What you have mentioned, don't suffer in silence. You know, if you have difficulties and you think, oh, I don't even dare to suffer because I'm so lucky, you can still find yourself suffering and struggling. You didn't do it to yourself. Like we said, life has had its plan for you. So it's okay to speak to it, to other fellow expats, to a psychologist, to a coach, whoever you feel comfortable with speaking. What really resonates with me a lot is when expats who have lived abroad for a long time and, you know, they apply for the citizenship, they have the passport, they speak the language fluently, they feel like they've betrayed their home country. They say, Lucy, I'm a traitor. You can have many homes. So this is all normal. This is all natural. So accept it, and it's part of you. It's part of your story.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Whew. Time to wipe those tears away. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you know anybody who is an expat or immigrant anywhere in the world, I think this video would really help them out too. I'm looking forward to more chats with Lucina. Thank you for watching my public confession or my public chats about my experiences living here as a foreigner in Germany and what it's been like. Vielen lieben Dank und wie immer, bis später.